Horrible boss blocks my promotion, and I discover he's cheating on his pregnant wife, the big boss's daughter. Time for revenge. Edit, an important update. Nearly 6 months after I created this post, I just discovered that Stalin is now aware of what I did to him. A former coworker visited my bar last night and informed me that this discussion on Reddit has been seen and read by someone from my previous workplace. The news has spread, and soon enough, individuals began connecting the dots. I am uncertain who notified Stalin about this, but evidently, he knows. I have not received any communication from him or Naive Girl, and since she remains with the same company, I am quite confident she is now aware that I revealed the truth about her as well. Honestly, I thought I would feel horrified if this information was leaked, but surprisingly, I find myself feeling quite exhilarated. In short, for those who find it lengthy, not everyone will wish to read the full account. Dutch, Flemish, and French are my first and second languages, so I kindly ask you to overlook any grammatical or vocabulary errors. This is somewhat of a long tale, but I truly aim to provide an insight into the type of person this boss was, so you can comprehend why I resorted to seeking revenge in such a harsh manner. I was desperate, and he deserved it. I came across the revenge stories on Reddit around 2 weeks ago, and it struck me that I possess an excellent revenge narrative of my own. So why not share it with you all? This incident occurred a few years ago, and since I have recently parted ways with the company, I believe it's secure to recount this story. I, Metal Dude, then 35M, was employed at a significant wholesale company in Belgium, serving as the second in command at a large branch. The branch manager, then 40M, was a complete jerk, so let's refer to him as Stalin from now on. Other individuals in this tale include my girlfriend, then 27F, Stalin's wife Cinderella, then over 30F, the overall manager of the company Big Boss, then 60+M, and one of the heads of our department, then 28F, whom we shall call Naive Girl. By this time, I had been with the company for quite a while and had always enjoyed good relations with my supervisors. I was on course to eventually become the branch manager myself. But then, out of nowhere, my previous manager was promoted to headquarters and was succeeded by a new manager introducing Stalin. He was a few years older than me and introduced himself to the group as someone capable of achieving results, claiming that under his guidance, we would cultivate the most prosperous branch of the company. He also had an aversion to the word can't, asserting that he was deaf to that term. He considered himself a winner who only associates with other winners. I roll. Everyone immediately recognized we were dealing with quite a character. From week 1, it became apparent to everyone that Stalin had no knowledge of the company or the products we sold and lacked any understanding of team leadership and collaboration. He consistently believed he was superior to others and had the frustrating behavior of allowing other individuals to do most of his workload. Consequently, as second in command, I found myself with an overwhelming amount of responsibilities. I won't bore you with the specifics, but my full-time job quickly became 2 full-time roles as I had to undertake a significant portion of Stalin's responsibilities too. It was like, here you go, and never once did I expect a thank you or good job. So Stalin was a dreadful boss. Surely things couldn't possibly get worse, could they? Spoiler alert, yes, they could. One day while working, I received a phone call. The person on the other end introduced himself as an important manager from our biggest competitor. For someone claiming to be crucial, his French was quite poor, which raised my suspicions. Why would a competitor call me and introduce himself in such a manner? It turned out this manager was attempting to offer me a position at their company if I was willing to disclose any company secrets regarding my current employer and maybe attempt to lure some customers away. I did not fall for this ridiculous conversation, but remained amicable and declined his offer, respectfully. An hour later, I was summoned to Stalin's office. He confronted me about the phone call, stating that he was testing my loyalty to the company and to him. He concluded this bewildering conversation with the words, "And I will continue to test you from time to time in the future." What the heck? The man prank called me himself to gauge my loyalty. Meanwhile, I was buried in work, handling a majority of his tasks, and here he was wasting his newly acquired free time doing nonsense like this? Who behaves in such a way? This is the type of scenario you see in poorly made comedies, not in real life. Things deteriorated further over the coming weeks. Stalin began doing progressively less of his duties. At times, I would enter his office to seek assistance, only to discover him reading the newspaper or even engaging in online poker without even attempting to conceal it. After all, why would he bother? He was superior, remember? When our targets were not met and our results were lacking, he would gather everyone together and shout accusations. He expected results from now on and would not hesitate to fire individuals who lacked the necessary qualities, all while contributing nothing himself. To exacerbate matters, he terminated some easily dismissed employees, new hires without long-term contracts to set an example, and neglected to replace them, thereby reducing costs. Consequently, everyone was working over 40 hours on a 35-hour contract just to keep the branch operational. Well, almost everyone. Naive girl, the head of a small yet crucial department, departed at noon every Friday, and Stalin certainly did not work 40-plus hours either. Nope. Every Tuesday, he left by 2 p.m. for his weekly Thai massage and relaxation at the spa, and every Thursday, he would arrive later and later. It turned out he had soccer practice on Wednesday evenings. He was coaching a team in the lowest amateur league, so after practice, he would indulge in beer as if there was no tomorrow. Additionally, every Friday afternoon he would vanish as well, claiming to go to headquarters in Brussels for meetings with the board and big boss. I recognized nonsense when I encountered it. My previous managers never had to do this. It was quite mysterious how he was absent every Friday, just like Naive Girl. You can already guess where this is leading, but more intriguing developments are on the way. Stalin also derived great pleasure from calling specific employees into his office and berating them in person, threatening their jobs if they didn't boost their productivity. He seemed to particularly target the youngest, newest employees, especially women. I don't recall him ever treating older male colleagues in the same manner. Nevertheless, we, as a team, managed to meet our targets for several months, aided by the fact that a local competitor went out of business. But still we performed notably well in comparison to other branches in Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg. At the New Year's reception, a company tradition, attended by all major branch and assistant managers, Stalin was called onto the stage, where Big Boss awarded him the title of Manager of the Year. Rather than expressing gratitude towards his employees, this pompous individual began thanking Big Boss for the trust he had shown him, praised his pregnant wife, and then proceeded to flatter himself. He claimed he was an excellent manager, perceptive in business, and skilled at maximizing people's potential, blah blah blah. I nearly gagged. It was nauseating to witness. And the applause he received, this was his moment, and he wanted everyone to recognize it. The following day, the trophy he received, a cheap piece of metal, was displayed prominently on a specially designed piece of furniture in the middle of his office. Honestly, at this point, Stalin reminded me of a more sinister version of Steve Carell from The Office, complete with an inflated ego. A few weeks later, I was working late, again, when by sheer luck I glanced at the security camera and was shocked. I saw Stalin kissing one of our heads of department, more or less a third in command, in the parking lot. Naive girl and Stalin. She was somewhat of an eccentric individual. Attractive, but I always thought she lacked a few screws. Interestingly, she attended the same high school and university as my girlfriend, allowing them to know each other without being friends. It's a small world, this will be relevant later. So, Naive girl was involved with Stalin. I initially believed she was more intelligent than this. Wait a second. Didn't Stalin thank his wife during that dreadful New Year's speech? His pregnant wife. What a jerk. He was cheating on his pregnant spouse, just when I thought he couldn't possibly sink any lower. I was acutely aware that he was the worst of the worst. To flaunt his authority over everyone, and especially over me, whom he couldn't intimidate in direct conversation, he had this infuriating habit of controlling vacation days like a Roman emperor overseeing the fate of the fallen gladiators. Within his first year as manager, I submitted a vacation request for October around April, but he denied my request, only to approve my leave just 2 weeks before my scheduled holiday. I had planned a trip to Greece with my girlfriend and her family, but due to his delay in granting my leave, my girlfriend's family decided to postpone their trip. My girlfriend and her father did not apply for leave because of this. Stalin did not just hinder me, he disrupted my girlfriend and her family's plans. He refused to authorize my vacation only to later grant it to demonstrate his authority. It cost me my trip to Athens. He was truly a massive jerk. His ego had ballooned to such an extent that it deserved its own national flag. I swear, if it got any larger, astronauts would be able to identify it from space, just like the Great Wall of China. I despised that man. The following year, having witnessed him mistreating other employees and myself, I realized I needed a strategy. I proceeded to request vacation approval, and surprise, surprise, Stalin denied me my request once more. He claimed he needed me at work that month due to inventory, which is not a task I handle. But this time, I devised a plan. He required my assistance because I was doing my job while simultaneously managing a majority of his tasks. Everything he loathed about his job, essentially anything involving numbers, accounting, paperwork, etc., I was responsible for it. He could not afford to lose me. Therefore, I decided to employ one of his own tactics against him. I called, pretending to be the manager of another company, and informed Stalin that I had received a resume from Metal Dude and was inquiring about his character. I'm capable of various accents and voices, so this was simple for me. The objective was for Stalin to realize I was searching for another position, compelling him to fulfill his responsibilities. Stalin assumed I was a fellow manager as he adopted an important person voice and began disparaging me as an employee. I was unreliable, frequently late, careless, and often forgot important matters, etc. You can grasp the situation. It was not flattering. To dissuade me from securing alternative employment, this egotistical jerk resolved to speak negatively about me to potential employers. What a jerk! What an utter waste of oxygen he was. However, it frightened him considerably because the following day, my vacation request was magically approved. He never confronted me about my job applications elsewhere. Mission accomplished, I was able to plan my trip to Greece with my girlfriend and her family, who are Greek Belgians. I was finally going. Fun fact, but no, I was not going. After I booked and paid for everything, he reneged on his word. 1 month before I was supposed to go on vacation, he called me into his office and informed me that he was required to attend an important business meeting in Prague, Czech Republic, and since one of us needed to be present at work, he had no choice but to revoke my holiday. I was momentarily speechless, but quickly collected my thoughts and insisted that he put this in writing because my girlfriend would not take the news lightly. He laughed, agreed, and sent me an email confirming the cancellation of my holiday due to his business trip to Prague. Little did he know, I was constructing a case against him and required this documentation. The fool genuinely believed it was merely to show my girlfriend that I had no control over this decision. Now, if this had been accurate, then yes, I would have understood. However, I was convinced he was lying. I had enough of this situation. Working under this man was unfeasible, and he was obstructing my progress. I had heard through the grapevine that he had stymied my internal promotions. You see, I have numerous connections at headquarters, and someone had disclosed that he had labeled me as incompetent for seeking a position that offered better pay and advancement within the company. He wanted me to remain in my current role, serving as his second in command, completing his work. This indicated he was hindering my promotions and preventing me from securing a respectable job elsewhere. I learned firsthand how he undermined my capabilities. Sure, I have my flaws like anyone else, but I am not the incompetent individual he depicted me to be to potential employers. I needed to land a new job, but Stalin was blocking every opportunity imaginable. As long as he was at the helm of the branch, I was essentially his serf, bound to the company and to him as my overlord. I needed an escape route but couldn't devise a way to achieve it. But then, Lady Luck graced me with her presence. The week I was due to travel to Greece, Stalin claimed he was away on a business trip, or at least that's what he informed me. My girlfriend traveled to Athens with her family and spotted something on Facebook. She called to instruct me to check my WhatsApp. She had sent me screenshots from her Facebook. It turns out Naiva Girl was posting pictures with Stalin in Switzerland. He had gone skiing with her. There was no business trip. That utter disgrace of a human being had canceled my holiday for the second consecutive year, solely to cheat on his wife with a younger woman. Oh, how I detested this guy. He certainly did not anticipate that my girlfriend and I would come across those photos. He was entirely unaware that my girlfriend and Naiva girl were Facebook friends. They had no real-life contact, so Stalin was blissfully ignorant. This revelation fueled my desire for revenge. I had evidence that he was cheating on his wife. Not just that, now, here's where things got really complicated. Only 2 weeks prior, I had been networking at a company event where I spoke with the manager of a different branch, a direct peer of Stalin. After a few drinks, I was a bit loose and unintentionally revealed my strong dislike for Stalin, and guess what? That other manager shared the sentiment. It turned out Stalin only secured his position due to being the son-in-law of the owner, Big Boss. This explained everything. The man was wholly unqualified. He obtained the job merely because his father-in-law gave him a leg up. So not only was he cheating on his wife, he was cheating on Big Boss's pregnant daughter. Oh snap, can I get a hallelujah? The universe was finally smiling upon me, and now I possessed undeniable proof, photos of him kissing another woman. It was time to set the plan in motion. So my girlfriend was in Athens without me, while Stalin was in Switzerland engaged in infidelity. I was stuck at work, facing difficulties due to being understaffed. I decided to email all branch managers, including Big Boss, who never replies, asking for additional assistance because I couldn't request anything from my manager as he was supposedly on a business trip and requested not to be disturbed. I was aware that he had told Big Boss he was taking leave because he needed to submit a request to be away. Thus, claiming he was away on business did not align, and I was confident of that. I hoped to bring Big Boss's attention to Stalin's dishonesty. I had never communicated directly with Big Boss. In fact, I'd only spoken to the man 2 or 3 times during my tenure. Therefore, I had to capture his interest in a clever way. This email certainly did that. Big Boss promptly responded, indicating that Stalin was on holiday, and he would notify him that the request for additional support was approved. I had made indirect contact with Big Boss. Now I had an ongoing email exchange. He informed us that he was on a business trip, which is why he canceled my holiday. Big Boss, he is visiting an old friend from school in Switzerland. I will ensure you receive extra assistance myself. Here's the email in which he canceled my holiday. I forwarded Big Boss the email Stalin sent me at my request. He explicitly stated he had to attend a business meeting. Big Boss, I will speak with him regarding this. It's peculiar. Perhaps he wasn't attentive. I will call him this afternoon to resolve this. Thank you and keep up the excellent work. The following day, Stalin called me from Switzerland. Big Boss indeed called him, catching Stalin off guard, and Stalin does not respond well to surprises. Little did he know, this was just the start. I had prepared myself and recorded the phone call. He exploded on the phone, paraphrasing, "You are insignificant. I can squash you like a bug. If I decide you won't go on vacation, there's nothing you can do about it. You will sit there like a little girl and endure it like the coward that you are." Yes, he was remarkably friendly towards women. Big Boss doesn't need to know I told you I was on a business trip. I owe no one an explanation. Keep that senile old man out of this, do you hear me? In that moment, it was as if a spotlight shined down upon me from the heavens. I had him. It was just one sentence but pure gold. Senile old man, I can only imagine what rich daddy-in-law would have to say about that. I wanted more proof. I was becoming an investigative mastermind at this point. Since he was cheating, I figured those photos might not suffice. He could claim those images were taken long ago or something. I was cautious not to risk him evading the consequences. Thus, I needed further evidence. Where was he going every Friday afternoon? Undoubtedly, he was meeting Naiva girl somewhere. I had to discover where. Suddenly, an idea sparked in my mind. His emails. He had once shared his password for the company email account, enabling me to access his work emails. His password was the name of his favored Belgian soccer team, Anderlecht. Ironically, this is the major rival of my team. You can't write this stuff. The man was my antagonist on every level. Would this password also apply to his personal email account? Surely he couldn't be that much of an idiot. But he was, of course. Mr. Idiot utilized the same password for everything. I discovered he was using Tinder. I found out he was emailing a woman from the Philippines. He must have met her there, and stumbled upon all the correspondence he exchanged with Naiva Girl. Apparently, this affair began quite early, meaning they were already dating when he got his Cinderella pregnant. Gotcha, you vile scoundrel. As the Mission Impossible theme began to play, I initiated the execution of my plan. Stalin was back from his little getaway and pretended nothing had occurred. I could still access his emails, so I checked periodically. On Wednesday, I hit the jackpot. He received an email confirming a booking for a spa wellness visit for 2 at 3 p.m. and a reservation for a certain restaurant at 6 p.m., also for 2 people. Both were scheduled for Friday. I wonder who he would be accompanying. Checkmate, my friend. Gotcha once more. The timing was perfect for the next and final phase of my scheme. I had printed the pictures from Naiva Girl's Facebook. Stalin kissing Naiva Girl, them skiing, enjoying drinks together, and Stalin in front of the Swiss flag near a cabin. Classic images. He was such a gracious model. I placed these photographs in an envelope along with a brief note. It reads something like, "Hello, we do not know one another, but I believed you needed to see this. Your husband is engaging in an affair. He did not go to Switzerland to visit an old school friend. Instead, he was there with this woman. Her name is Naiva Girl. This is her address, this is her email, and here is her Facebook and phone number. She is not a bad person. I'm unsure if she is aware that he is married and has a child." He told his boss he was in Switzerland to see an old friend and informed his coworkers he was on a business trip in Prague. Both statements are false. He is cheating on his wife with a colleague from work. I have accessed your husband's email and discovered some interesting information. You can read it for yourself. His password is Anderlecht. Please take your time to review the emails and check the latest messages. They are meeting at name of restaurant at 6 p.m. today, following their spa visit at 3 p.m. I apologize for throwing this information in your face. I recognize it is overwhelming, but you deserve better than this scoundrel. Signed, Anonymous. I had reservations about involving this poor woman, Cinderella, in my revenge. I was about to shatter her world, and she did not deserve this, but my girlfriend convinced me. She stated, "If I were you and cheating on my pregnant self, I'd wish to know sooner rather than later. She needs to know, metal dude." Of course, my girlfriend didn't actually call me metal dude. That'd be odd, but you get what I mean, right? That particular Friday, I called work to indicate I would be slightly late due to car troubles, the first time I had been late in years. Instead, I drove to Cinderella and Stalin's residence, dropped the envelope in their mailbox, and rang the doorbell before quickly departing. I knew Cinderella would be home alone. Her vehicle was in the driveway, and she was still with a newborn. Stalin was at work. Afterwards, I went to work, where I sent an email to Big Boss. I informed him that Stalin was skipping work frequently, making it excessively challenging for my team and me to manage. I stated that I was considering resigning due to this. I concluded the email with, "And I have included a voice recording that you would find very interesting to hear for yourself. It's Stalin calling me immediately after you conversed with him in Switzerland." In merely 15 minutes, my phone rang. It was Big Boss himself, calling me on my company phone. Oh dear, even better than I had hoped. Big Boss expressed disbelief at how Stalin addressed me and spoke about him, thanking me for bringing this to his attention. He assured me that he would discuss it with Stalin and urged me to postpone my resignation for the time being. He intended to resolve the issue. Me, he will just deny everything, and as soon as you end the call with him, he'll vent his anger towards me. Big Boss, no. I am visiting my daughter and grandson this afternoon, and I'll stop by work before that. It's nearby. Ding, ding, ding. Did he just mention he would visit his daughter? The same daughter I had just devastated with the news of her husband cheating. The same husband Big Boss intended to confront before visiting his daughter. Perhaps I should try my luck in the national lottery this afternoon, as it felt like everything was falling into place. I made the decision to withhold information about the affair, naturally, but also about his absence that afternoon. I had initially intended to confront Big Boss about Stalin's habitual absence every Friday afternoon, hoping to lure Big Boss to that restaurant at 6 p.m., but this was even more promising. No, let Big Boss see for himself that Stalin was nowhere to be found. At noon, Naiva Girl said her goodbyes and left. At 12:15 p.m., Stalin shut down his computer and left the office as well, without saying goodbye, naturally. Emperors do not converse with the peasants. At 4 p.m., Big Boss entered the premises. It was showtime. Big Boss appeared visibly agitated about something. Could it be that his daughter had already shown him some scandalous images? Had he visited her first? He inquired where Stalin was, and I swear, Leonardo DiCaprio should hand over his Oscar to me right about now. I acted entirely surprised, saying, "Oh, you were coming here to speak with Stalin. I must have misunderstood during our call. Why didn't you converse with him in Brussels? He's there every Friday, isn't he?" Big Boss looked astonished. I truly deserved that Oscar and responded, "What do you mean?" "Me, he always departs at noon every Friday because he is meeting with you every week in Brussels. Or at least that's what he informed us." I could see the dominoes falling inside Big Boss's mind as his expression turned blank. He immediately took his phone and called someone. He stepped back, but I could overhear parts of the conversation. I conjectured that he was calling his daughter because he said, "No, he isn't here. Apparently he went somewhere." I can only imagine his daughter relaying the emails and the details I had shared with her regarding the restaurant and spa resort. It seemed she hadn't discussed that with him yet. Big Boss, "Oh really? I know that place. Okay, I'll come over." Big Boss then thanked me and assured me he would handle the situation, ending with his usual, "Keep up the good work," as he exited the room. The entire weekend was fraught with questions. What had transpired? All I knew was that when I arrived at work that Monday morning, Stalin was conspicuously absent. Instead, a representative from headquarters was present, explaining that Stalin would not be returning that week and would be temporarily replaced by him. Stalin, however, never returned to the company. After a month or so, they appointed a new manager. Years later, I found myself working in Brussels at headquarters. I finally got that promotion. And became acquainted with a board member. During a business dinner, when I mentioned serving as second in command under Stalin, the man erupted in laughter. "That guy," he said. "Let me tell you a story." The board member then filled in all the gaps I had been pondering over the years, always unaware that I was the one who had led Stalin to his demise, of course. Apparently, Stalin truly acquired the managerial role due to his relationship with Big Boss, being his son-in-law. He was considered the golden child, and Big Boss had grand plans for him. He was intended to take over the company upon Big Boss's retirement. However, it came to light that he was cheating on Big Boss's daughter with multiple women and failing to fulfill his job responsibilities by being absent when he was supposed to be at work. All information I already had, but hey, I was still an A-list actor in this scenario, so I feigned surprise and astonishment. Apparently, Big Boss and his daughter, Cinderella, caught Stalin in the act at a restaurant with one of his mistresses. Oh, how I would have loved to be a fly on the wall to witness that incident unfold. I'd give my left testicle just to see it happen. He informed me that Cinderella divorced him, expelled him from their home, and while Big Boss didn't terminate his employment for fear of legal ramifications, he did downgrade him to a meaningless position in the southern part of Belgium, where French is the primary language. Stalin did not speak French. He only understood West Flemish, one of the most challenging Dutch dialects known to man, resulting in most native Dutch speakers, especially from the Netherlands, failing to comprehend him as well. I genuinely love people from West Flanders, but they communicate in an entirely different language from the rest of us. Klingon would be easier to grasp. Unsurprisingly, Stalin was utterly lost. He was out of his element, had no friends or connections, no influence, and to top it all off, he could not understand the language. He left the company after a few months and ended up in a low-wage job. As for Naive Girl, she walked away unscathed. We never discussed the incident, though. She eventually met someone else and even married him a year later. My girlfriend and I were invited to the wedding. Big Boss retired a few years later and sold the company to a foreign entity. He had no apparent successor, but the millions he received certainly benefited him. His daughter seemingly rekindled a relationship with the man she dated before Stalin. They remained a couple the last time I heard. I hold no remorse for Stalin, not even a smidge. I am not the type of individual who relishes in the misfortunes of others, nor am I a sociopath, but this man truly irritated me to my core. I have never encountered such a narcissist, self-centered egotist in my entire life, and he aimed to ruin my life along with the lives of many others. As far as I am concerned, I halted him before he could inflict further harm and safeguarded my own career in the process. His wife is better off without him, the company is better off without him, my colleagues are better off without him, and I am better off without him. TL Doctor, a dreadful boss obstructed my promotions and prevented me from finding a better position. I explained why he was such a terrible manager. I discovered he was cheating on his pregnant wife, who happened to be the daughter of Big Boss. I gathered substantial evidence, photos from Facebook, hacked his email, recorded him speaking ill of Big Boss, etc., and exposed him as a cheater and fraud without anyone knowing it was me. He lost his marriage, home, and ultimately his job. Edit to address a few inquiries in Dutch. Yes, I was able to spend time in Greece with my girlfriend's Greek family. The new manager was an amazing, laid-back dude, and the subsequent year I enjoyed 2 entire weeks in Greece. And no, my girlfriend isn't my wife today. Unfortunately, our relationship didn't endure. Her title is ex-girlfriend now, but the breakup was amicable, I suppose. However, there is a new Miss Metaljude who has emerged. This time, it's a girl who genuinely enjoys Pantera and Slayer. I should propose to her as soon as possible. Story 2. I got scammed while job hunting, lost money on tech, and learned my scammer's a pro. My blog exposes his schemes and helps others. First and foremost, this incident did not occur in the United States. Some events may be prosecutable there, but here, it was largely unregulated territory regarding the type of scams I fell victim to. For the purposes of this narrative, in this unregulated territory, we utilize the top-level domain NML. My wife works as a nurse. Back in the early 2000s, she was employed in an intensive care unit of a relatively upscale and thus costly hospital. Specifically, her responsibilities involved caring for patients who had undergone heart surgery. At the same time, I was employed by a small company that was on the brink of closing down. The owners were retiring. We had not secured any significant contracts recently, and in my country, severance pay for employees is mandatory unless one files for bankruptcy. Thus, they opted to shut down while they still had sufficient funds to pay our severance packages. One day, my wife phoned me to discuss a gentleman in his late 50s who had been near death. Following that harrowing experience, he felt very grateful and generous. We will refer to him as Benny Lowy. This gentleman was engaged in electronics imports, allowing him access to remarkably advantageous deals. To summarize, he was so appreciative that he could offer us an LCD television, a store display model that had been used only once, for approximately 1/4 of its retail price. However, we had to keep it confidential because he risked his relationship with the brand. I was caught off balance by this offer. I agreed, and she made the payment. In truth, the only television we had in the house was a wedding gift weighing over 100 pounds, and we were excited to replace it. I admit I was naive. Nevertheless, I thought that since he was her patient, she would have access to all his personal details, making it highly unlikely that he would target her for a scam. His father was a well-known businessman who was now retired and approaching his 80s. Mr. Lowy SR was widely respected in his community and would not have allowed his son to cause chaos. Additionally, my wife had mutual acquaintances with Benny's brother, who was a reputable physician at another hospital. As Christmas approached, my wife sought Benny's advice, who had already been discharged, and returned home regarding the gift. She wanted to give me a phone. He connected her with the best option available to her. While I cannot recall the exact model, it was the flagship Sony Ericsson, which local carriers had not yet made available. He had access to it due to his position as the local representative for that brand. She decided to go for it and made the payment. I mentioned my employer was closing, so she inquired if Benny knew of anyone looking for an IT professional. "Of course," he replied. "I'll meet your husband at a designated place tomorrow." There I found myself at a gas station uptown when he pulled up in a luxury vehicle. Mr. Lowy appeared as an ordinary individual, using a cane and showing signs of significant knee or hip discomfort. We settled in at the gas station's cafe, where he informed me about a mid-management role, reporting directly to him, at a mining company I had barely heard of. He guided me on how to conduct myself in the upcoming job interview, and we discussed salary expectations. I was impressed. Wait, mining. Did he not mention he was involved in imports? He was the type of person where you wouldn't dare to pause for questioning, as he had already added something else to the equation. This role offered a better salary than my current one before being laid off. In the days that followed, we exchanged several phone calls, and things seemed promising. I had already lost my job. We settled on meeting on December 24th, and he would introduce me to senior management as the recommended help desk junior manager. I rose extra early that day and donned my best suit, waiting in the front yard. Hours passed. I had intended to return home before noon to prepare for the dinner that night since my parents were coming over. After numerous calls, he eventually informed me he had been assaulted and robbed. "They took my cane and broke it over my knee," he lamented. I felt pity for him. I told him we could postpone the interview for the time being. No, I promised you. I will make it up to you." Since he had been injured, he was unable to deliver the items my wife purchased from him. That evening, my mother inquired about the new job. I could not bear to tell her about the delay. I stated everything was progressing well. Later that night, I searched for him online. Nothing appeared, aside from some accolades for his contributions to import and customs associations. He called me to reschedule our interview for December 31st. Picture me once more, dressed in my best suit outside my home on a summer morning. Naturally, he did not show up. When I finally connected with him, he claimed that after his car had been stolen the previous week, his wallet had also been taken. The thieves had eventually discarded it during another robbery, resulting in him being detained as a suspect. He had been unable to retrieve the imported electronics from the customs office, as they had been transferred to another holding facility, which would take a couple of weeks to regain access. That night, while we were at my parents' house for New Year's Eve, my mother asked about the new job. "Everything is fine," I assured her. I searched for him yet again, this time using different variations of his name or the supposed company he was placing me with. Not much emerged. Nothing suspicious. The next call came about a week later. He informed me that, due to his involvement in a police investigation, the mining company had terminated his employment. However, this was fortuitous, as now I would be interviewed for his position as IT manager. This meant double my previous salary and an opportunity that would mark a significant advancement in my career, so I refrained from asking too many questions, simply feeling grateful. All those delays would ultimately be worth it. As you've likely surmised, this situation persisted for weeks. My interview never took place. The electronics never arrived. We had lost our money, our time, our Christmas spirit, our hopes, and I remained unemployed, having refrained from applying elsewhere as I believed this position was secured. Somewhere in between, I texted him, "Why are you doing this to us?" He replied, "If I wished, you would have nothing on me. But if you remain loyal, you will be rewarded tenfold." Time passed. Eventually, my wife overheard from a coworker about a patient at another hospital where she worked. Some nurses have part-time jobs at different hospitals. She had also fallen victim to him. However, her husband was a detective, so a few hours later, we were providing him with details about the scam we had encountered. After making inquiries, he discovered a third nurse who had also been scammed by this individual. Before long, the detective apprehended him, this time genuinely, and he confessed to committing scams, citing an impromptu, fabricated, mild case of dementia. The detective negotiated an out-of-court settlement whereby he returned every cent to us, though not our time or hopes, in exchange for us not pursuing any legal actions. This was a reasonable arrangement since, lacking a written agreement for any of these transactions, we had at best a tenuous claim to our money. Notably, the funds he used to repay us were borrowed from his father and some from his brother, the physician. Remember, this did not occur in the U.S. This settlement was fully legal here. I could not pursue any further legal actions, but there was no non-disclosure agreement in place. I wondered, what could prevent others from falling prey to this scammer's deceptions? Perhaps some Google search results. I found myself in a unique position to share my story without risking any legal repercussions, so I created a blog on WordPress.com. Imagine a site named Benny Lowy, the scammer, WordPress.com. It contained a single post written in the third person recounting my experience. The closing words from the site's admin, myself, of course, were, "Has this happened to you?" In the days that followed, the comments section of that post featured numerous stories similar to mine. For each comment that warranted its own narrative, I sought the author's permission to transform those into standalone posts with a brief introduction, a testimony from Javiera from X City. Each one eventually garnered its own comments, and so forth. Since civil lawsuits, as opposed to criminal cases, are public in my country, it's possible to explore ongoing class actions and recent settlements. 7 years later, I discovered that he attempted to sue the host for WordPress NML, our local fictional top-level domain, claiming it was undermining existing, past, and potential activities for the plaintiff. I would argue that part is factual. To this day, if you search for Benny Lowy online, that blog will be the first result. It has retained that position for the past 15 years. The case was ultimately dismissed, but he appealed and then took it to the Supreme Court. There exists another case filed in a different local court that was promptly dismissed, the documentation of which concludes with his attorney apologizing to Automatic.com for any past or future inconveniences related to this matter. The ruling determined that Benny Lowy would also have to pay for the legal fees of the party he sued. There exists a third lawsuit. It was initiated by his former lawyer, who he had not compensated for the prior civil suits. At that moment, I considered posting on this blog saying, "If I wanted to, you would have nothing on me." However, I have never made an attempt to reveal my identity to him. You know, I feel some sympathy for him, but whenever I contemplate taking the blog down, I log in again. I did today, after 4 years, and see that he continues his deceit. Those comments I turned into posts, of course. Even though I know I am legally protected, the fact that I have never been contacted by him suggests he has scammed many individuals, and it would be impossible to know where to begin. All his victims or targets are people going through vulnerable phases in their lives or experiencing tough times. Unemployed individuals, small startups seeking an angel investor, and minor salespeople pursuing promising commissions. Those who have eventually reached a resolution or agreement are often because Benny's now elderly father had to intervene financially. Reportedly, his brother has severed contact, but remains the first point of contact before any legal actions. Most commenters leave their email addresses, and I am aware of a few who have joined forces and succeeded in legal actions. Yet, even if others have not had such success, they now have a platform to express their frustrations, and their accounts remain the top result on Google searches for him. Perhaps this is not revenge, but rather it is my story.